Thank you, Madam President. Although I don't know how you follow our leader. Quite frankly, you don't. You just speak in your own steps. And because of the magnificent words that our leader said, sometimes when you speak and sometimes in the church it comes to you, you got to change direction. So I'm just going to change direction a little bit. And I'm going to begin with a Dr. King quote that a genuine leader is not a searcher for consensus, but a molder of consensus. That is who we have in Audrey Stewart Cousins. Not just a searcher for consensus, a molder of consensus. No matter what part of the state you may be from, no matter what your ideology may be. Leader Stewart Cousins, here's what you have to say in a genuine and earnest way. That is the dream that Dr. King wanted us to realize. You see, I've always had a special relationship with this resolution because it is the very first time that I spoke on the floor as a freshman, and I have not stopped speaking since, Madam President. I am a little verbose from time to time. But it always strikes me as something worth celebrating. The book of James 2 tells us that faith without works is dead. I come directly from the book of James. My grandfather James was born in 1929, the same year as Dr. King. So I come from the book of James, you see. And the faith that Dr. King had was the same faith that my Teamster grandfather had. Speaking about that labor piece, that dignity, the March on Washington was the March on Washington for jobs and freedom, Madam President. That's what Dr. King was speaking about, economic justice and empowerment as well. So this would have been his 94th birthday. 94. A long way away from the age of 39 that he was taken from us. And I always marvel at that. I think I reference it in my speech every year, that as I got closer to 39, I wonder what was I doing to level up to what Dr. King did. Now that I'm on the other side of 39, I look back and I see a Nobel Prize winner. I see a civil rights leader. I see an iconic figure in 39 years. But what I've learned, having that 4 in front of my age, Madam President, is that it's not about what I'm doing in relation to Dr. King. It's what am I doing with the message that Dr. King has given to us. You know, my favorite Dr. King quote in his life, quote is life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? You know, and I see the world through the lens of my daughters. And it's always amazing to see what they're learning in school now. Giada's in 3rd grade, for those of you who haven't heard about her in a while. Karina's in 1st grade. And they're learning different things, but they're becoming more rooted and stronger in their convictions about what they're saying and how important Dr. King was. It's no longer about this is just some dude who we have a day off about. This was somebody who inspired my dad. My family inspires me. You know, I realized something about Dr. King this year is that he is the greatest example that I can think of a phrase called nominative determinism. Your name determines your destiny. Usain Bolt was born to be a track star. It just had to be. Martin Luther King was born to be a king of kings. Nominative determinism. He was sort of like a maestro, that drum major for justice that you heard of. Speaking of music, there's a conversation that comes from, in the hip-hop world, we talk about sampling, right? When you sample an original tracks, those of us who are fans of hip-hop, you've heard an original song and then you hear a different version of it afterwards, right? That's sampling, right? We all know about sampling. It is technically the reuse of a portion of a sound recording in another recording. That's the technical definition of it, right? Jay-Z says, yeah, I sampled your voice, you was using it wrong. You made it a hot line, I made it a hot song. So sometimes sampling doesn't always work out. What do I mean by that? Don't sample his voice. Don't sample his message. Don't sample his quotes if you're not willing to live by it. Don't quote him if you're not standing up for economic justice and civil rights and labor rights and voting rights and justice. Don't quote him. Don't use his voice wrong, because his hotline won't be your hot song. I can guarantee that, Madam President. Other sampled works last the test of generations. Those of us who are hip-hop fans, we know that Good Times became Rapper's Delight. Footsteps in the Dark became Ice Cube's It Was a Good Day. Dido's Thank You became Stan from Eminem. The Isley Brothers, too many hits. Between the Sheets to Big Papa. But my favorite sample of all time is a song from Tom Scott and the California Dreamers called Today. It was sampled by Pete Rock and CL Smooth from Money on the Mount Vernon, Madam President. And their song was They Reminisce Over You. We reminisce over the memory of Dr. King. We reminisce. Shall I say date back 94 years ago to keep it on track. Now, the message that some critics of sampling used to have was that nothing can stand up to the original, Madam President, and it's okay. But the original is a blueprint. The original is the original greatness of these songs, of these people, of the culture. It's okay if you like the sample better, though, right? Because it's your generation. It's the ear that you listen from. It's the place that you grow up. It's okay to like the sample better, but you have to know the original song. Now, it's important to clear a sample, right, by giving the original artist credit. And by giving the original artist credit, Dr. King, we all owe him credit. We would not be here if not for Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Make no mistake about it. From ASC to Z, from Hasty to Hakeem, we all lived the dream. And I think about the notion of sampling, right? And I think about how generations to come will learn something different about Dr. King each and every year as they study not just the works that he's, not just his public work, his theological work as well. Because as a reverend, he was also a very deep thinker in the theological world. He said that 10,000 fools proclaim themselves into obscurity while one wise man forgets himself into immortality. Now, we've all sampled that legacy of Dr. King, from quotes to speeches to political philosophy to even the vibration of his voice when we try to nail what he said, but he's the original. But it's okay to sample, Madam President. His immortality was noted. He was certainly a wise man, but never to be forgotten. That's the one thing that we will never forget, his legacy. Now, as I close, I vacillated between my favorite speeches from Dr. King. It was Once I Have a Dream, but I've Been to the Mountaintop is now my favorite Dr. King speech because it was more than just a speech, it was prescient that eerily predicted his sad but too soon departure from this earth. Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead, but it doesn't matter with me now because I've been to the mountaintop, and I don't mind. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place, but I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And he's allowed me to go up to the mountain, and I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we, as a people, will get to the promised land. And I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. If you're going to quote Dr. King, you don't have to quote that speech. But live by that proverbial mountaintop that he went to and that he saw the good in each and every one of us. From 63 districts around the state to 50 states in the country to billions of people around the world. Madam President, God bless the legacy of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.